I play Thomas Alva Edison, often credited as America's greatest ever inventor. He was a man from humble beginnings. I think he got his first patent when he was still a teenager, but at the age of 12 he went to work on the railways to earn money. He was home educated before that. He was quite a tearaway at school. He'd had, I think, was it scarlet fever, but basically an era of his life when he was a kid really affected his hearing. He had very bad ear infections, and so he was quite badly impaired hearing-wise. And then he had this incident, which he credits when he was working on the railways at the age of 12, of actually sort of really kind of sealing the deal. And he said there was this sensation of a pop going off in my ear when a conductor, when he was running for a train that was leaving, pulled him onto the carriage by his ear. And he just felt this thing snap. Now, yeah, that's part of many of the sort of urban myth stories. It's about a war over the distribution of electricity. It's the idea that George Westinghouse has this idea to distribute electricity through AC current, alternating current. And that can travel on over far greater distances. Edison's idea is to use DC current, which is what has been the sort of backbone of all of his industry and invention to this point, including the incandescent light. And then Nikola Tesla comes from over from Europe, from the Paris workshop where he's been working for Edison, the Edison company. Highly recommended, and with ideas of how to create an AC generator and perfect the commutators on it and create a current that would be strong enough and much cheaper to distribute for Edison's bulbs. Westinghouse reaches out for a partnership, and Edison's too far down the line and feels that he's being assailed with competition rather than potential allies and partners, and metaphorically puts up a fence to them, ignores them, then tries to take them down. The current war gets to some pretty far-flung places of obsession. And in the meantime, he loses his wife, and Nikola Tesla has this roller coaster of fortune from coming with nothing to having something to then ending up working in a ditch with nothing, digging cables for Edison Electric, and then going to George Westinghouse, and Westinghouse lifting him up off the ground and giving him everything. And so a lifelong friendship began where, with the favour was then returned. There was a point in Westinghouse's life later after the film where he said, look, if you don't, I quite understand if you want to keep your patents, but if you do, the company's going to go bankrupt. He said, no, you can have them all. And so Westinghouse Electric managed to stay afloat, but Tesla died in poverty. Michael's great. Michael Shannon is one of the heavyweights. He is someone who he internalizes a lot as a human being. He takes his time. He's very cool, but not in a cold way unless the part requires that. He just takes his time, which in a world of noise and immediacy kind of throws people. And I just love being around him. You know, nothing's wasted. And Westinghouse is this really generous, warm, glowing human being who you want to be more like, really. Nick's fantastic. He's a very pure actor. He really went for the detail of the accent and this sort of emotional cut-off, but still with great flashes of humour and emotion. I mean, he manages to traverse this very difficult kind of polarity between being absurd and eccentric and actually being very relatable, which in lesser hands wouldn't quite have worked. And he keeps the integrity of his character as well as make it entertaining and moving and everything else that it does in the story. So it was great. And it was great. One of the great things about being in a film where there are three of you is that, especially when you don't have all that many scenes together, together especially, there's none of them with all three of us, you get to admire each other's work when you finally see it. So I had as much good time watching it as I did making it with those guys, because so much of what we did was in separation. I saw Miele and the Dying Girl after the fact, after the idea had been mooted that he could direct this film, and I thought, this is just the right person. It needs to have an approach whereby somehow these inventors of old are seen as young men, vibrant, rock and roll, and relevant, and they're making the future that we're now in. So how do you do that? It can't be, a sepia-toned Edith Wharton rustling skirt period number. You've got to blow away all the fustiness of it, but you also have to pay great attention to the period detail, because it's all about that. It's all about that going to the next stage. So he was the right stylist for it, and I knew he'd be able to take care of visually the kind of grammar that you need to create that excitement around a period moving from gas to electricity.